Welcome to the egcfpodcast, where we have in-depth conversations about topics that we may not cover on Sunday morning. My name is Nate, and today I'm joined by Rob Woodrum, Janelle Green, Blake Roseman, Annie Jones, and Tyler Jones. In this episode, we talk about servant leadership. Happy Friday, everybody. My name is Nate. I am the student pastor here at Eastgate.
My name is Rob. I'm one of the pastors here at Eastgate.
I'm Janelle. I'm also one of the pastors here at Eastgate.
There's attitude when you say that. I don't quite get that.
I'm Blake. I'm the community pastor here at Eastgate.
I'm Annie. I'm the Kidsgate pastor.
Yeah, Annie.
I don't
this
know
is
what
Annie's
new. Welcome,
first
Annie.
title
week.
is.
Yes. You get to kind of decide. You can say like Kidsgate leader, Kidsgate pastor. It can depend on the person you're talking to.
Depends on how good you want your resume to be for your next job.
Which I would be working on right now.
For the next church that I go to.
And that's everybody talking.
No,
That's
well,
gonna
there's
be-
everybody talking, but there is one other person here. He's hiding over there in the shadows. Pull the curtains back a little bit.
I'm Tyler, and I'm the worship leader here at Eastgate.
And also Tyler and Annie are married. So just
What?
so y'all know.
Like to each other? Or
Yeah, because actually we could say all of us are married, but not all of us are married to each other. That would definitely be a cult. This thing's off the rails so fast.
What are we talking about today, Nate?
So we're going to be talking about servant leadership today. And if I hadn't heard that before, I would think that might be kind of contradictory for a servant to be leading. What is servant leadership, and why do we do it here at Eastgate?
I have a question. Do you have a context for this, like outside of Eastgate? Like, have you thought of that before you came here? Have you heard of that before you got here?
Probably not. I don't know. Just growing up in the church, that's something I've heard. So
Yeah, okay.
like I had a loose concept of it
Okay.
as far as I could remember.
Okay.
So, I mean, you rightly pick up on the contradictory nature of it. But that's kind of the way the kingdom of God seems to work. Contradictory to what would be, the mean according to this broken world's standards. So, yeah, servant leadership is a oxymoron, but it's not in God's economy. So, there's scriptural basis for this. Anybody know what they are?
I've got them all memorized.
Okay.
I actually don't like the quizzes for this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Only because I fail so badly, and I'm already
Well,
self-conscious I don't do a good job.
You
and
weren't
then
here
it's
during the
recorded.
setup, and I had actually already gotten everybody to look these up and had them ready. That's why.
Wait, so-
you've just sort of derailed this
Wait,
whole thing.
wait. So this is something everybody's prepared for except me.
Except you.
Okay.
So it's you. You're the
It
problem.
really is me. Okay.
Go ahead. Annie, what do you have there? What do you got?
Matthew 20:25 through 27.
It's such a good one. Read that, can you?
Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many."
So I don't know how it could get any clearer than that. I mean, it's a fascinating thing to me to see how over the years, I could point back to our own contemporary world and go back close to 100 years and look at the ways in which we began developing a concept of how to organize a church community and largely borrowing it from the business world with CEO hierarchies and things like that. But we can go beyond that. We can go farther back into church history and find this over and over. This is a repeated pattern that we have. And I for the life of me, can't figure out. That should be the end of it. Like what we just read there should settle it, right? When Jesus says it's not going to be that way among you guys, it's not going to be the same way. In other words, those who are following Jesus and patterning our lives, communities, and ministries after what it is that Jesus did, I don't know how we escape what it is that Jesus said there.
I mean, would it just be people interpreting different ways to live that servant leadership out, like they think.
I think so. And I think you hit on it, Nate, when you said you've heard it a lot growing up. But we don't necessarily. So we could jump the track to some other subject matter and find the same issue when we talk about grace. I heard grace my whole life growing up. I heard the concept of grace. This, you're saved by grace, not of works, et cetera, et cetera. The crazy church, I mean, we were like, grace, yeah, it's solo gratia. It was a very Calvinistic group. But I mean, it was like, this is it. It's grace. It's all grace. And yet practically, on a practical level, that was not the case at all. It was 100% works. And if you didn't toe the line and perform properly, you were immediately identified as being the thing that was holding the whole church back, et cetera. That was a really bad example, environment, and a very corrupted system. But the same kind of thing, I think, applies when it comes to servant leadership. We say, yeah, it's servant leadership. I serve by being the CEO of this thing and telling everybody what to do.
It's my favorite way to serve. So I have a question though. What was like your heart in Eastgate getting set up? I know when you started Eastgate, it wasn't like I'm going to build a church and it's going to have this many people. But like as it grew and became that,
yeah,
I know there was intentionality behind that in terms of what the servant leadership was going to be and what you personally, like your goal that you wanted to model.
Yeah. So I think I don't even know if you guys know this, but when I first left to the crazy church and I was wandering around, I was kicking around for probably a year without a church or without anything like that. And I wrote a manifesto called Why I Hate Church. And it was one of those things that I've just felt like I had to get off my chest, just writing it out. It's horrible. I mean, I wouldn't recommend anybody read it because it was just...
Can we read it on the podcast?
Nope, you cannot. I don't even know if there's a copy. I don't even think I kept anything
Even
of it.
God doesn't want to read it.
No, he doesn't. God was just like, yeah, we're going to prefer... He was probably plugging his ears while I went along.
Like tell her, he's just got to get through this. Don't worry, we're not going to come back to it.
He'll get it out of his system and it'll be over.
But that's the thing they do even like with therapy and stuff like that. Of like, it's so healing to just to be able to write those things out and to be able to get those thoughts out.
And I think that was the thing that frustrated me the most, was this sense of being controlled by human leaders who pastors really let me down. I mean, I was adamantly opposed to pastors in general. My whole thing was, I went to the Bible. I was like, how does the New Testament describe the way the church is supposed to be set up and governed and taken care of? I need to get to the root of this. And of course, the New Testament doesn't give us anything like that. It gives us lists. It gives us lists of ministries without any descriptor at all.
Or hierarchy.
Well, it definitely doesn't give us a hierarchy, and that's what you uncover the more you...
The Bible doesn't have a little graphic of umbrellas?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like... Because I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. That thing got left out.
It's in the appendix.
It's what Jesus was drawing in the sand. John chapter 8.
Umbrellas.
He's drawing umbrellas. It's like, hey, I got an idea. Oh, wait, what were we doing here? So anyway, I was so frustrated with that, and the idea that one person was given authority that you could never question. So we'd always come back to, shoot, I didn't have us look that up, and I can't remember, but touch not my anointed, do my prophets no harm, was like the chant that always came back. Like if you were to ever question anything that a leader said within the context of the crazy church, but listen, it's not just there. That phrase comes up a lot. You'll hear it a lot in churches where, if somebody doesn't want to be corrected. Psalm 105.
You quote that to us every Friday during
staff meetings. Touch not mine anointed. In other words, don't touch me. Back up.
Stop trying to hug me. And I'm like, I'm your daughter.
I don't care. No, but that's not the point on that whole thing. That is not to say that somehow that there's some position in the church that is beyond correction or that, is the arbiter. It's honestly many papal systems all over the place where someone will set up a regime. And look, gosh, this gets dicey.
Did you just say people with like a Louisiana accent?
No, people.
Like a Cajun way?
Like a
was
people.
Was that for Blake?
Peoples.
So you can understand what you're saying?
Yeah.
Appreciate you translating for me.
Anyway, the whole thing, and that's when you really start looking at it. And first, you have to go to the source. You have to start at the basis for the church anyway. Well, the basis of the church is going to be Jesus, and the reality of him as Messiah. On this rock, I'll build my church. That's how I interpret what Jesus is saying there. On the revelation that he is the Messiah of God. And so if he is the basis, then everything built on that foundation has to resemble or be in line with, in harmony with what he was doing. And Annie just read the passage. I don't even know. I mean, that settles it. That's the end of it. And so then we look at him and we go to John, the end of John. I can't remember the exact, it's at 35. Well, if it's 35, we're in trouble because John doesn't go that far. But the verse is, it's
John 13.
Is it John 13 where he's washing the disciples' feet, and then he says,
"If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you."
And so here's Jesus taking the position that's even actually lower than, as best we can tell, lower than what a servant would do in the context of that culture in that time, serving and caring for his disciples, which, in a normal hierarchy, he's the rabbi. They're all trying to imitate and be like him. He should be the one calling the shots. They should be washing his feet if you were looking at it in a hierarchical sense. But Jesus upends the whole thing. And so then you've got this dichotomy of servants who are leaders, who are...
Yeah, I remember when we were doing the Paul and Gender class, the small group that was based on the book Paul and Gender, and they were kind of going through the context of Paul's verses about gender. It was talking about of people are saying, oh, men, Paul's saying just men should be the leaders. And they're like, okay, well, even if that's the case, then it's like, well, here's a rag. You get to start cleaning.
Exactly.
Like leadership here at the church in this way is not the idea of the world around us, and that you're
right.
fighting for something that you might not like what that actually represents here. Does that make sense?
It does. And so one of the startling examples that stood out to me, and this is years ago, and I'm not going to identify who it was, but they were talking about the leader of this particular movement, and they were just saying he's just so humble, because I was with him one day and we were out in the parking lot and he saw some trash and he picked it up, and I just thought that was so amazing that a man of his stature and stuff would pick that up and throw that away. And I was like, you serious? I mean, that there is no job among the community that is too low or too base for those who consider themselves to be in positions of leadership. There's nothing that we would say, well, we wouldn't, he wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that.
So if somebody were to come to me and say that they wanted to be a pastor, I'd say, well, here's some gloves and they go
and
clean
the toilet scrub. I mean,
That's how I started here.
no, but I mean,
my name is Nate. I'm the toilet pastor.
But I have seen even here, and this is well-meaning people with a good heart. So I'm not. This is not to judge them,
Right.
but I have seen like when we're doing cleaning days or things like that. You're going to clean, and they're like, and I remember saying like, "Oh, Dad, will you go clean over here?" And they're like, they thought that was hilarious that I would tell you to do something. Obviously, they must not have been around for very long.
No.
But also that you were going and like dusting something, like laughing, like this is the pastor. He should not be dusting right now. And I remember I think maybe even stopping and talking to them. I'm like, this person's really going to regret saying that. Now they're going to get preached to after church. But it's that same thing of like, that's something too that we want to make sure we don't ever unintentionally.
Exactly. I mean that, and I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how to reinforce it enough, and at the same time, it can become problematic. So, after communion, one of the things that I realized is that a lot of cups and stuff are laying around, and they were already kind of doing that, but they do it very pretty much later after the whole thing was over. And I thought, gosh, while we're doing that last song, I could just start policing up some of this trash and stuff and get a head start on the whole thing. And so I started doing that. And people, I can't tell you how many times people would stop me and say, you shouldn't be doing this. Let me take this. And I'd be like, gosh, I'd like to do something constructive around here. Let me help out. And I was caught up short by the Lord because I kept yanking it away from people, saying, no, I'm doing this. And I realized, okay, actually what has happened here is a good thing. What's happened is that I set an example I'm not trying to say this like I did something, but you know what I'm saying. It's just that there's an example there that people were interested in following, and I didn't want to. I don't want to discourage that either, because this isn't just for leaders. This is for all of us within the community. All of us take up the mindset.
We don't want to get into a competition of who can do the least job or whatever.
Yeah, who
Like,
can do the
that's
worst
how we
job?
twist it back around.
Yeah.
We're all racing to the toilet to clean it, fighting each
The
other.
big fight brawl breaks out. Toilet cleaner
Because
being
even
squirted in
that
people's
is
faces.
coming back to status and trying to use it as a way to be above other people.
Well, it creates a hierarchy. We just invert it and then call it humble.
There we go.
So
Yeah. So I mean, yeah.
so these verses are well and good. I mean, but just on a practical level. So internally, we have, I guess, thought processes, and for me, I judge a lot. So I usually deem myself as better, smarter, funnier than the person that I'm talking to. So I have to intentionally remind myself of Jesus to, take the low road. I don't know what you would call that, but humble myself. I have to internally. That's what we have to do. So that's where I suppose that servant leadership would be birthed from. I know that you guys
Birthed. There we are, back to that again. Yes, but it will be, and you're right. Humility, and it's an intentional humility. So, which means that if a person, and I don't believe that's true about you. I don't think you're somebody who sits around judging people all the time. But if a person. If a person finds themselves in that position, and I think, well, I'm going to say it's not true, but it is true, because we're all prone to that. Every one of us is prone to assuming our rightness and somebody else's wrongness. But there's where the whole concept of an intentional humility, of cloaking ourselves in a humility. That's why Jesus would command it, because it's something that we can aspire to. It doesn't mean that we're always going to agree with this humble choice that we have to make for ourselves or our actions. It doesn't mean there's not going to be a wrestling match and a struggle, but that's the calling, to embrace an intentional humility, to take the low position. James chapter 5, James goes into this whole tirade about rich people. Like, why in the world would you be giving preference to a rich person who's coming in, as though that somehow validates you? You take the humble person and put them in that position. And then he goes off on a whole thing of how the rich are abusive of humanity.
So one of the instructions that Jesus gives us, I think Matthew 25 or Mark 25, whenever it says go and visit the least of these, and he's talking about prisoners and the hungry and the widow and that kind of thing. Well, John talks about that. This is true religion, to go and visit the orphan and the widow and that kind of thing. So, but if you think about that in the way that Jesus is talking about it, if we're giving food to prisoners and visiting them and helping the poor and the least of those in society, Jesus is instructing us to be their servants. So he's instructing us to get lower class-wise than the lowest in society.
Well, and that was something that I remember reading something about Romans trying to make sense of Christianity when it first started, because there's things where the slave would be the church leader, and the slave master would be one of the members in the community. It was such an upside down dynamic, but it worked within the church, and even working to kind of upend really slavery and those whole dynamics in that time.
Yeah, that was throwing people. That's what actually made Romans suspicious of this Christian movement, because it was upending their normal societal breakdown. To have a slave in a position of leading made no sense to the Roman world. But within the context of Christianity, it makes perfect sense, because none of those things, none of those hierarchies, none of those societal boundaries exist within the kingdom of God. It brings us back to Eden, where we stand in unity and in the flourishing of life.
So in essence, the servant leadership that they exemplified is what made Christians stand out in that society. They changed the society and the nation by leading it as an example of servant leadership. Is that what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that,
And
it was the life that they lived that changed the
That's
whole
right.
society around them.
And it was subversive all the way around because instead of attacking the social orders, Paul was not a social warrior. He didn't attack the social order.
He didn't organize protests
Nope.
against the,
didn't do any of those sorts of
things.
things, and he didn't outrightly even attack it. What he did was use the exact language of the Roman system and then subvert how it was carried out. So,
and you see God doing that in the Old Testament with the law that's written and the rules of slavery in the Old Testament of just the way of the year of Jubilee, of freedom,
Sure.
of buying back freedom, of like, it's using those, this is God doing what he does,
Right.
of like using the language and using the ideas that are there and basically removing the power dynamics from it to where it doesn't mean anything anymore.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's, to me, the best way to be able to interpret and read Ephesians chapter 5, which starts with its heading of submit to one another. And the word submit is a word that's we always think in terms of it in terms of obeying authority, but what it actually means is put yourself in a lower position beneath somebody else. And so it carries with
Would like serve be a better word?
serve. Yeah, you could say serve, but it's an attitudinal thing. It's not even so much the action, it's the attitude. And where is it? Is it Philippians where he says, think of others as better than yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, he states it explicitly there. Like,
So we could have a service here where we're like, okay, we're going to wash each other's feet. And we're going to do that just as a rote tradition.
right, right. Because this is what we do as yeah.
But that isn't what, I mean, that would be the fruit of a changed heart if you were doing that in a
Correct.
servant leadership way.
Right. And look, there are churches that practice foot washing, and I'm certainly not wanting to denigrate because I think it could be
They could be doing wonderfully. I'm
Absolutely.
not saying that. I'm saying
and
that
the
we
inverse
could turn,
can be true.
And the inverse can be true.
It can lead you to change your heart
Wow.
interesting. That's an interesting.
because the action of it, and eventually you'll be thinking about, why am I doing this? Hopefully, you'll eventually be thinking about why
in
am
the
I
ideal
doing
sense,
this?
but that's true. That's a good point. For me, like I looked at foot washing, and that was a big part of the crazy church, and I just hated those things. It was just awful to me. And
You don't like touching other people's feet?
I'm just no,
take
it was
your
even,
shoes
no,
off,
the
bud.
worst of it. I could handle washing someone else's feet. Having people handle my feet was just more than I could bear. I mean, it was just I'm almost passing out every time.
Did you start kicking them?
I wanted to. there was a lot of water splashing everywhere during that. People having to hold me down, but
Like trying to give a cat a bath.
it's exactly it.
Picture.
But I realized that like there was something very practical and real that Jesus was embodying in that moment. And I think that a greater way to honor that, it doesn't negate the idea of a foot washing service. And if everybody decides we need to do one, it's fine. I'm sick that day. But I think the attitude behind it is what we're called to embrace, and that's all the way through. I mean, that's just Jesus. Even in Luke 14, Jesus talks about just on a practical level. You go to talking about this intentional humility, embracing it. Don't take the seat of honor. Don't put yourself in that position. Don't be looking for these accolades among people. He said to the Pharisees, woe to you when everybody speaks well of you. Like this whole idea of trying to position ourselves in places of honor and respect so that we can gain power. There's just no other way around it, I don't believe.
I know that, this was something I grew up thinking about and hearing about and just wanting to do my best living.
Her dad ranting
That
in the
out.
house.
Good night, Janelle. Don't forget servant leadership's really important. That kind of thing. And so it was very much carved into my brain. But I think that one of the things I found myself struggling with a couple years ago, I was starting to feel burned out because I was like, man, I'm doing this service, I'm doing these things, and like it's not even that like people aren't appreciating it, but just feeling like it's never enough because like you put yourself out there, you give so much of yourself, and then and it felt like there's like the criticisms were hard because that's just when you're with people that just people don't know what you're sensitive about, and so they're going to say things recklessly sometimes. And I feel like God had to really show me, and it really changed my heart of understanding that I'm not I'm serving people, but I'm serving God.
Right.
And that if I serve people, I'm going to get burned out really quickly.
Right.
Because they're not going to give that unconditional love back the way God does. But if I serve God, I'm getting that unconditional love. I'm getting that reassurance. I'm getting that
Right.
That peace that people just can't give. Even if everybody's trying their hardest, like Janelle's sensitive, so we got to be real nice. It's never going to be enough. And just realizing like I serve God by serving people, but I'm not. But serving people isn't what I'm here to do. Does that make sense? Like
practically, how is the difference for you?
Okay, so what it does is then I don't feel like I have to almost like the difference was in my mind, I felt like almost graded by every person. Like, am I getting a
Graded?
grade?
Graded? Oh, okay.
Like, am I getting a passing grade? Like, am I doing an A+ job as a servant leader for you and for you and for you and for you? And
So, okay.
does that make sense?
Yeah, it
and
sure
then,
does.
And then when but serving God, I take that away. I'm
Yeah,
just serving
right.
God by the way I treat people, make sure that I live as someone with integrity, that this is really between God and I. It's not really about how they're viewing me.
So it goes back to Ephesians 5:21. Submit to one another. That is, put yourself in that lower position and serve and all of that. And he doesn't just say it there, submit to one another, but he says, out of reverence for Christ. In other words, how you demonstrate your reverence for, your worship of, your obedience to, your commitment to Christ is revealed in our willingness to put ourselves in that position. Not for a human grade, not to see, so that everybody can look at us and say, wow, isn't that something? They're just so amazing. But so that we can love and express our reverence and gratitude to Christ.
So all of this is in service of Christ, to serve Christ.
Correct.
And one of the aspects of serving Christ is to serve people.
Yes. I think it's the main way in which we demonstrate our service and love for Christ is by loving and serving our fellow human being.
And I think it can sound like such a small distinction and maybe not even sound that different, but for me it was life-changing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know if it makes sense.
I think it's like, where we seek our validation. Like, are we getting
Yes.
our validation from the people we're serving who we don't know what they're feeling, how they feel about us? Or are we getting our validation from God who loves us and we're enough for him?
Yeah.
So it is, Janelle, it is incredibly nuanced on a lot of things with Christianity because it gets down to motive a lot of times. There's so often we can, I mean, just being on staff here at Eastgate, I'm, coming to church on a Sunday, I have to be here or you're going to yell at me. And I don't like that. So, but no, I mean, so often, it's like, man, I don't really want to be there that day or whatever. And I'm here. But the thing is, it changes whenever I'm like, oh, I get to go see my family today. So the actions end up looking a lot the same. I think that's what you were talking about with the practicality of what she was just talking about. How does that look different? Probably doesn't look very, very much different. But the internal factor is where the nuance of that, and I don't even know that the line is blurry, but it's really, really small. You know what I mean? So
I do want to address too, like, I think that some people do have a roadblock in servant leadership of feeling kind of that fear of, well, if I'm giving and giving and giving, how am I going to be protected? And I think for a lot of people who have worked in churches even, who have been taken advantage of, and there's still that fear of, well, who's going to take care of me? And there's that same mindset shift of acknowledging that I'm not doing this to be reciprocated.
Right.
God has all that taken care of, and being able to trust that. But that's hard.
It is. That's a challenge, a lifelong challenge. To me, it goes back to something we say on a regular basis, that if we build our identities on the idea that I'm loved by God and that he loves and cares for and will provide for me, then I can take the risk of serving and giving myself completely to the service of others, knowing that Christ is taking care of me. Good.
I'm so sorry. You could tell I was so excited to talk.
I'm glad.
I'm so sorry.
I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, I found the verse. Sometimes you're like, this makes me think of a verse. So in Matthew 6, when Jesus talks about storing our treasure, and like where we store it there our heart is. And then right after that, he talks about not worrying. And that was something we talked about of like, there can be this idea of like, I have to store this treasure. I have to keep these things because if I'm not looking out for me, who is? And that's where the idea of like, Jesus is like, me, I've got you. And it's that
That's
same
right.
idea too, in terms of like, our heart, talking about where your treasure is, there your heart is as well. Just even being like, we can take that risk with our heart as well. And knowing that.
That's right.
We've got that with Jesus. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and again, then it leads us to even deeper into relationship with Jesus, because it doesn't mean then that every opportunity to serve is something that we have to take up. And maybe that's one way that we avoid burnout, is by bringing that before the Lord. Lord, is this what you have me doing right now? Is this what you want me to continue doing? And being free enough in our relationship with the Lord to recognize that, you know what, maybe this is an area I can just step away from for a moment and I'll be okay. And God's okay.
Yeah, God's going to lead us to different places with all of that. It doesn't
Right.
mean like it just expands.
Right.
But
And I guess since we're on this subject and kind of it's layered underneath some of what Annie was talking about, is that none of this means that we make ourselves doormats or put ourselves into positions of receiving unnecessary abuse by others.
I was just thinking that too, because of the church culture that has been set up, I believe, by the church, is a commercialist, consumerist mindset of people showing up, looking at the leadership at a church saying like, how are you here to serve me? What can you do for me? And us having to really fight against that mindset of like, wait, no, this is about all of us serving each other. This isn't about a handful of people
serving each other out of a reverence for Christ, of care, of being able to demonstrate our love. So more than anything, what we're talking about in this is attitude, not so much putting ourselves in a position where we have to go around and take somebody's unnecessary burdens onto ourselves because, well, I've got to, be the servant of all. He's talking about an attitude there of never putting ourselves in a position where I'm above all this. I'm above your little petty problems or whatever. Doesn't mean that anything like that. It just, but it doesn't mean that every problem or burden or command or anything that comes our way is automatically our responsibility. There's where we stay in touch with Christ in this whole thing.
And it's where we're the body of Christ, because I might be called to do something that Nate's not, and he's going to be called to do something that I'm not. And God's using all of us all the time. Right. And I think sometimes as Christians, we feel like that we have to be the all in all, and there's only one all in all.
Good point. Exactly. Because God's rarely ever putting it on me to make phone calls. Or balance a budget. Yeah. Now somebody could come to me and say, balance my budget. And I would love to, but that is not in my skill set, and I will ruin you.
I just imagine you being like doing your servant leadership, like, okay, and then this family just going through financial ruin because
I'm helping.
I'm a servant leader.
Well, and that Jesus doesn't say nobody lead, that it's just an anarchy, free for all. Everybody's just running around doing whatever. Like there still is structure. It's that there's no elevation and status.
That's right. And no aspiration for elevation and status or power over people. So, I mean, that's the thing. And I've said that before. It's an axiom. If everybody's in charge, nobody is. And that's a reality. Like nothing can get accomplished if we don't have some people designated to make decisions, to do certain things. But those people have to be following suit with what Christ laid out as the ideal, that we're here to serve one another. And, that gets us into the whole thing of titles, and that's been an ongoing controversy at Eastgate. We've never seemed to be able to extricate ourselves from that, because I don't like titles. I don't. And did we look it up? Didn't we look it up beforehand? Where is it where Jesus says,
nobody don't call anybody father. We did look it up, and there was a Bible verse that went along with it.
Jesus makes the statement: don't call anyone father. You have one Father in heaven. Don't call anybody teacher or rabbi. You have one, and so he's talking about these titles. There's no other way around this to understand what he's saying. He's saying, don't put people in these positions or put yourself in a position of elevating your fellow human being above yourself. There's one umbrella over all of us. Go ahead.
It actually, I forgot what I was going to say, but
okay.
That was really helpful. What do you think, though? Because we started this podcast introducing our titles. Did that bother you when we did that?
No, because we're talking about what we do here. No, there's a distinction between a title and a job description. So each of us told what our job description is and the specific ministry that we're working at here. But as soon as that becomes a title, if I go around and call myself Pastor Rob and look, gosh, this gets me into deep waters here because there are plenty of people who do this who I respect and I have no problem with or whatever. But for myself, I do not want that elevated position, because it's that mindset. If I'm Pastor Rob and I've got a toilet brush in my hand and scrubbing a toilet, immediately there's a disconnect in people's thinking. Well, wait, no, the pastor is elevated. He shouldn't have to do that. But if I'm Rob, yeah, then,
Okay, we won't elevate you. Whatever you want.
Except when we literally elevate you on the stage during teachings.
Well, and that's
a practical.
That's a practical
so people can
thing.
see.
So
These
everybody
are
can
bad.
see.
So I also with the father and rabbi thing is that's helpful for people who are not who don't have a title, who aren't pastor or worship leader or whatever the case may be, because having that hierarchy in somebody's mind that somebody else is over me would put a barrier between themselves and Jesus. And I think that Jesus wants us to go directly to him,
Right.
for him to be the authority. And so to not have that, I can't pray for myself. I'm going to have the
Correct.
pastor pray for me. You know what I mean?
There's
So-
one mediator between God and man, and that is Christ.
And that's where, too, I think some of this is just kind of getting into the semantics.
It is.
But I think that we are intentional with our heart and making sure that we, keep the accountability that we have set up for leadership to, if someone starts going rogue and going like power hungry.
Yeah, I just keep throughout this conversation, I just kept coming back to in my mind. It's about intentionality where our heart is, and we so often make it about the thing that we're doing, like the title.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, and it's an intentional attitude that we adopt.
Well, and that we hold each other accountable to.
Yeah.
On staff, even. I mean, I know that I'm technically new, but I've worked here before as the
And
youth
yet you're
leader.
back. That's curious.
That's just
Because-
Things must not be going well.
There's because there's not only a humility in servant leadership, there's a humility in accepting accountability from each other and being able to say to each other, hey, what if we think about it this way?
Yeah.
And being able to accept that, and it's not an attack on our character.
Right. Gosh, that's a great point. Really good point.
So a few years ago, God convicted me on benevolence, and I think that it's important also that we share our position, I suppose, is about the best way to say it in a sense, because I recognize that there's a lot of cool things that happen in benevolence that we're able to help out different people, and it's like, man, this is really great. And God was kind of showing me, like, don't keep all that for yourself. There's other people in the community that want to help out and be a part of that blessing as well.
It's the same idea, too, of like dad with the trash bag and the communion. Of like,
Right,
you
yeah.
know, that seems to be what God is
Right.
convicting us on with all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, share your trash bag.
So you share the trash bag.
Next skate t-shirt. With a little raccoon on it.
With a little raccoon. We can change our mascot.
All right, cool. Tyler?
I don't know.
Thank you, Tyler.
He's so humble, he's not going to speak.
All right, we'll end it there.
Yeah, that was fun.
If you, the listener, have any questions or if there's something you want to learn more about, you can send us an email at egcfpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening.
Give me that thing.
Bop, bop.
Bop.
Needs to just be one bop. It's got to be Nate. I'm sorry. It's my fault.
Bop.
Start again. Bop.
It doesn't work whenever you do it. Only whenever Nate does it.